So what happens when you are like an absolute expert in your field?
Yeah.
You've written the literal book on how to succeed, and then you completely burn out and imposter syndrome completely takes over.
Oh, man. It is a terrifying, paralyzing place to find yourself. I mean,
Yeah. Cool.
you effectively feel like a fraud wandering through this house that you built with your own two hands.
Right. Exactly.
And the really twisted irony is that the more expertise you have, the heavier that paralysis tends to be because, the gap between your public authority and your private exhaustion, it just becomes completely unbridgeable.
Yeah, and while you're standing there frozen, the landscape around you is just shifting so rapidly, you can barely keep your footing. I mean, we have this tendency, right, to view industry experts as these untouchable robotic machines of endless productivity.
Right, like they never get tired.
Exactly. We just assume they execute their own frameworks flawlessly forever. But even the absolute masters have to pivot when the ground gives way beneath them. And that tension between total authority and total burnout is really the engine driving today's deep dive.
It really is.
Because whether you are, trying to write the next great fantasy novel or architecting a tech startup or just figuring out how to market your side hustle without totally losing your sanity, this dynamic applies to you.
Absolutely. So today we are dissecting Chapter 1 of Tammi Labrecque's book, Newsletter Ninja 2. If you give a reader a cookie, specifically, we're looking at the introductions chapter.
Right.
And our mission today is to really unpack the mechanics of how navigating personal burnout combined with a wildly shifting digital landscape can actually force you to forge these highly refined, hyper-focused marketing strategies.
Yeah, so let's lay out the roadmap for this. We're going to explore how adapting your fundamental approach, specifically by completely rethinking the deployment of reader magnets, or what Labrecque calls cookies, serves as the ultimate shortcut.
The absolute best shortcut.
Right, a shortcut to turning casual consumers into an army of devoted superfans.
Yeah.
And I think more importantly, we're going to break down the psychology and mechanics of doing this without padding your work or wasting a single second of your audience's time.
Yeah, and to really understand the strategy, you have to understand the crucible it was forged in. The text doesn't just start with some dry marketing framework. It actually starts with a profoundly humbling admission from the author regarding her own evolution as a creator.
Right, it's super personal.
It is. She details that late 2019 brought on this massive, debilitating wave of burnout and just a total personal breakdown.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was before the world plunged into what she hilariously but accurately describes as the 400 or so months of 2020 and 2021.
Oh man, the 400 months, that time dilation of that era is such a universal experience. But, what happens to a creative business when the creator simply stops?
It grinds to a halt.
Exactly. Her forward-facing creative work completely stalled out. She had been building all this momentum on a debut urban fantasy novel, and it just stopped. Her teaching courses flatlined.
Yeah. The burnout, which was, compounded by this massive wave of imposter syndrome we mentioned, it just made front-facing, visible work utterly impossible. But, and here's the detail in the text that I think requires some serious scrutiny, she notes that she spent the summer of 2020 leveling a priest all the way to level 80 in World of Warcraft Classic.
Okay, I have to stop you there and push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Because I hear what you're saying, but honestly,
Yeah.
it sounds a little bit like a rationalization for just checking out. I mean, leveling a healing character in a 10-year-old iteration of a video game while the real world is locked down. How does grinding a video game actually translate into back-end business progress? It kind of feels like we're glorifying procrastination here.
Well, I think that's a totally fair critique if the video game was like the only thing happening, but it wasn't. The WoW W Classic detail is actually vital because it represents a low-stakes environment for systemic mastery.
What do you mean by systemic mastery?
So think about it. She was playing a healer, right? A support class. You're managing a user interface. You're monitoring health bars. You're executing these repeatable, predictable tasks in a digital world because the real world is entirely too chaotic.
Okay, so it's a control thing.
Exactly. It provides the steady dopamine drip of measurable progress when your actual real-world business feels completely stalled. But crucially, the text reveals that while she was doing this, she was also quietly grinding away at the back-end data of her actual profession.
Right, she didn't just quit working entirely.
No, she never stopped doing consults, and she actually continued taking on background list management clients. So she stepped out of the spotlight, sure, but she stayed in the laboratory.
Okay, so she's operating in the background, but what does back-end list management actually mean in this context? Because, Managing someone else's email list while you were too burned out to manage your own seems a bit counterintuitive to me.
I get that, but it's actually the perfect antidote to imposter syndrome. When you are the ninja, right, the recognized authority on stage, every launch, every email, every new initiative carries the weight of your entire reputation.
Oh, wow. Yeah. The pressure is huge.
Exactly. Failure is public and it's terrifying. But when you are just the mechanic backstage tuning the engine for someone else, failure is just data. You tweak the system and try again. By shifting her focus to testing theories on actual clients in the background, she just completely removed her ego from the equation.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and she was managing lists across different sizes, different genres, and vastly different subgenres.
So she was essentially using her clients' audiences as this massive, real-world A/B testing ground while she recovered her own creative energy.
Precisely. And let's break down the mechanics of what that testing actually looks like during a highly volatile period. I mean, the years 2020 and 2021 saw massive shifts in consumer behavior.
Right. Everybody was just glued to their screens.
Right. Yeah. Inbox volume exploded. And as a result, consumer patience just plummeted. Tactics that worked perfectly well in 2018, like aggressive daily email sequences or these really highly complex sales funnels, they were suddenly resulting in massive unsubscribe rates.
Because everyone was just overwhelmed.
Exactly. And because she was managing multiple client accounts, she had access to aggregate data. She could see deliverability rates dropping across the board. She could monitor how Apple's mail privacy protection rollout was basically destroying the reliability of open rates as a metric.
So she wasn't guessing.
Right. She was discarding outdated tactics, not based on some marketing theory, but based on hard empirical evidence from thousands of email sends across diverse client accounts.
That completely reframes the entire summer for me. She wasn't just hiding, she was actively gathering telemetry data. The strategies she brings to the table in the second book weren't born from, like, a whiteboard brainstorming session. They were forged in the fires of real-world back-end testing during literally one of the most volatile periods in digital marketing history.
And that right there is the mechanism of true mastery. You have to adapt through the burnout. You allow that front-facing creative engine to idle, and you redirect whatever remaining energy you have into observing the raw mechanics of your field.
Which gives us this highly actionable framework for the listener. When you hit that wall, when information overload is clearly paralyzing you or imposter syndrome is just dominating your thoughts, do not try to force the massive front-facing creative project.
Yeah, don't do it.
Right. Don't try to launch the flagship course or write the magnum opus. Shift your focus to the quiet, mechanical, behind-the-scenes work. Analyze the data. Refine your systems. Let your future strategies evolve from the actual telemetry you are collecting, rather than, forcing a creative breakthrough that your brain simply doesn't have the bandwidth to support yet.
But, that raises a secondary and perhaps even more complex problem. If the creator has to evolve and adapt through burnout, what about the ecosystem they are operating in? Because the people on the receiving end of those marketing efforts, the audience, they went through that exact same time dilation.
Oh, for sure.
They experienced the exact same societal burnout.
Which brings us to the second major paradigm shift the author highlights, right? The evolution of the audience. And specifically, this critical reevaluation of the ask versus give ratio. The text notes that she assumes her reader is likely an author or an author's assistant, since they make up the vast majority of her students.
Right.
But she explicitly points out that the reader has changed, and by extension, their audiences have fundamentally changed too.
Yeah, we often use the term inbox fatigue, but I think we really need to define the mechanics of what that actually means in a modern context. It's not just about the raw volume of emails. It's about the cognitive load each email demands.
Yeah, it's exhausting just looking at a full inbox.
Exactly. Because of this universal overwhelm, the old aggressive tactics of constantly demanding attention and clicks and sales, it simply triggers a defense mechanism in the consumer. Labrecque points out that the key changes revolve around how frequently creators are sending communications and, crucially, how they are balancing the amount of asking they are doing versus the amount of giving.
So let's define these terms mechanically. What exactly constitutes an ask and what constitutes a give? Because I think a lot of creators believe that simply sending a well-written email is a give, when in reality they're asking for the reader's time and attention.
That is a vital distinction, and it's a trap a lot of people fall into. An ask is any communication that requires the audience to expend capital. And that could be financial capital, social capital, or cognitive capital.
Okay, so give me some examples.
Sure. Asking them to buy a book is a financial ask. Asking them to leave a review is a social and temporal ask. Asking them to click a link to read a long blog post, that's a cognitive ask.
Right, they have to do work.
Exactly. A give, on the other hand, provides immediate, frictionless value entirely within the communication itself. It's a standalone micro-story that just entertains them for a minute. It's a highly curated link that saves them 3 hours of research. It's a specific, actionable shortcut that solves a micro problem they are facing right now without requiring them to click away or, pull out their credit card.
So to use an analogy, let's look at this through the lens of signal-to-noise ratio in audio engineering.
I like that.
Yeah, so the give is the signal, right? The pure, valuable information the listener actually wants to hear. And the ask is the noise, the static. If your marketing strategy is constantly asking for sales, asking for clicks, asking for reviews, you are cranking up the noise floor.
Yes, exactly.
And eventually, the static gets so loud that the audience just takes off their headphones, they unsubscribe, or honestly, even worse, they just stop opening your emails entirely, which, completely destroys your sender reputation with email service providers.
Oh, man. The destruction of sender reputation is the hidden penalty of a high ask ratio. Algorithms from Gmail and Yahoo, they monitor engagement deeply. If you send an email to 10,000 people and a huge chunk of them immediately archive it without reading because they recognize the pattern of your asks, the algorithm flags you as low priority.
You become the noise.
Exactly. Eventually, you end up in the promotions tab or straight into the spam folder. Your deliverability completely tanks just because you didn't manage the psychological ratio of your communication.
But when you shift that ratio, when you crank up the signal by dropping free bonuses, offering genuine insights, and solving problems without any strings attached, you change the entire dynamic. And the text reveals a highly unconventional metric for measuring the success of this shift.
Yeah, this part is fascinating.
Right. Labrecque notes that because of this change in the ask-to-give ratio, creators are actually having fun interacting with their mailing lists again. They're receiving emails from students saying they never believed they could actually enjoy writing their newsletter, but now they do.
And, using creator joy as a metric for success seems almost esoteric or like a little woo-woo, but it is actually a highly pragmatic leading indicator of sustainability.
I have to admit, I struggle with joy as a business metric. Joy is so subjective. We track open rates, click-through rates, and conversion metrics because those are the things that actually pay the bills. How does a creator's subjective feeling of joy translate into an objective marketing strategy?
That's a great question. It translates through the mechanism of consistency and tone. Audience building is not a transaction. It's a relational architecture that must mature over time.
Right.
In the beginning, a lot of creators view their email list like an ATM. You punch in the code, which is the promotional email, and you expect currency to dispense. But ATMs don't have emotional fatigue. Humans do. And when you treat humans like ATMs, you subconsciously adopt this tone of desperation or, corporate sterility.
Oh, I've definitely read emails like that.
We all have. Writing those emails feels like a chore, a heavy burden. You absolutely dread doing it.
And the audience can smell that dread. It bleeds into the microcopy.
Exactly. They feel it. But when you shift to a giving model, the relationship transitions from a transactional burden to this fun, asynchronous conversation. If the creator is genuinely enjoying the process of curating and sending the content, the entire tone of the writing changes. It becomes more relaxed, more authentic, more engaging.
It becomes human.
Right. And this consistency builds trust. And trust is the essential precursor to any successful conversion down the line. Basically, creator joy prevents burnout. And preventing burnout is literally the only way to survive long enough for compounding interest to take effect in audience building.
That makes perfect sense. The joy is the armor against the burnout we discussed earlier.
Right.
So the immediate application for anyone listening is to audit your own communications. Look at your client interactions, your marketing emails, or even your internal team updates. Evaluate your ask-to-give ratio.
Yeah, be honest with yourself about it.
Yeah. If you feel a sense of dread right before you hit send on a campaign, it is almost certainly because you subconsciously know the signal-to-noise ratio is off. You're asking way too much and giving far too little. Fix the ratio. Give more concentrated value, and you'll actually enjoy the process again, which will organically improve the quality of your output.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the final and undoubtedly most challenging mechanical concept in this introductory chapter. We have established that you need to give value, these metaphorical cookies, to your audience. But the critical question becomes, What is the architecture of that cookie? How big should it be? How much value is the right amount of value?
And this is where the author makes a decision that runs entirely counter to the prevailing wisdom of the modern internet. She advocates for the power of narrow, unpadded focus, choosing extreme density and concentration over mere word count, length, or volume.
Yeah, and to really understand the weight of this, we need to formally define what a cookie or reader magnet actually is. A reader magnet isn't just any random, free piece of content. It is a highly targeted, strategically designed asset offered to a consumer in exchange for their direct contact information, usually their email address.
Right, it's the very first step.
Exactly. It's the top of the funnel. It's the initial handshake. For a fiction author, it might be an exclusive prequel novella. For a software developer, it might be a really lightweight diagnostic tool. For a consultant, it could be a highly specialized audit checklist.
So it's the specific solution to a specific problem that basically proves your competence to a complete stranger.
Correct. But the author is remarkably transparent about her own struggle with the architecture of this specific book. She notes that Newsletter Ninja 2 is significantly shorter than her previous release. It clocks in just shy of 22,000 words.
Wow, yeah. By traditional publishing standards, 22,000 words is basically a novella. It is incredibly brief for a nonfiction business book.
It really is, and she admits she was plagued by this massive, self-imposed hang-up that a real book must physically cross the 30,000-word threshold to be considered valuable. That arbitrary numerical metric got in her head so deeply that she actually delayed the publication of the book twice.
Think about the irony there.
I know.
An undisputed expert who teaches these exact mechanics to thousands of students, held back highly valuable, market-tested information from her audience on two separate occasions, simply because the container didn't look big enough on the outside.
It's wild. It is the ultimate manifestation of the imposter syndrome she wrestled with during the pandemic.
Right.
We have been so conditioned by the physical world to equate length with value and weight with worth. If a textbook is heavy, it must be comprehensive, right?
Right.
But as she analyzed the actual architecture of what she was trying to teach, she realized that the topic of this second book, specifically the mechanics of reader magnets, is just vastly narrower than the overarching email strategy covered in her first book.
Yeah, she mentions there is almost no overlap between the two texts. Only a single 1,900-word chapter from the first book even applies to this new, highly specific topic.
Right, so she was faced with a fundamental architectural choice. She could either pad the new book with 8,000 words of pure fluff, repeating herself and expanding on all these tangential topics just to hit a made-up industry standard of 30,000 words.
Or she could publish a tightly focused, 22,000-word, highly concentrated guide.
Exactly.
And she chose the concentration. She explicitly states in the text that she refuses to pad the word count. She is choosing to trust that her readers are grown adults who are perfectly capable of highlighting and belaboring the text themselves, without her needing to hold their hands or repeat the same concept 3 times just to fill pages.
We really need to analyze why this is such a radical departure from current content creation norms, because the algorithms that govern our digital lives heavily incentivize padding.
Absolutely. The algorithmic pressure is just immense. Video platforms incentivize longer watch times, so creators stretch a 5-minute concept into a 40-minute video to trigger mid-roll ads.
Yeah.
Social media platforms prioritize time on platform, so writers break a simple insight into this sprawling 20-part thread.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Even traditional publishers want thicker book spines because they take up more visual real estate on a physical bookstore shelf.
Yeah.
We are constantly told that longer, bigger, and more expansive is better. So why is a padded product actually less valuable to the end consumer?
It all comes down to cognitive load theory.
Okay, unpack that for us.
So the human brain has a strictly limited amount of working memory available to process new information at any given time. When you pad a piece of content, you are introducing extraneous cognitive load. You are basically forcing the reader to expend mental energy filtering out all your fluff just to find the actual mechanism they need to solve their problem.
Oh, wow. So it goes right back to our signal-to-noise ratio analogy.
Yeah.
By adding 8,000 words of fluff, you aren't adding value. You are literally turning up the static. You're making the signal harder to hear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the modern attention economy, time and cognitive bandwidth are the most scarce resources your audience possesses. Therefore, density of insight is the highest possible form of value you can offer.
Right.
If you can deliver the mechanism to solve a client's problem in 22,000 words instead of 30,000, you have not shortchanged them. You have given them back the time and mental energy it would have taken to process those extra 8,000 words. That time savings is a massive give in the ask-to-give ratio we discussed earlier.
I love that. And I really love that phrasing from the text, respecting the audience as grown adults. Because when you pad your work, whether it's a book, a presentation, or a software interface, you are subconsciously treating your audience like children who need to be distracted by sheer volume and flashing lights.
Yeah, it's almost condescending.
It totally is. You are assuming they equate bulk with value, rather than recognizing they're adults coming to you for a specific, efficient solution to a specific pain point.
By refusing to pad the text, the author is signaling extreme confidence in the underlying mechanism she is teaching. She is saying, look, the tool I am handing you works so well that I do not need to wrap it in bubble wrap to make it look impressive.
Yeah.
The mental block of hitting an arbitrary 30,000-word metric hurt the creator by delaying the project twice. But if she had succumbed to that pressure and padded it, it would have fundamentally hurt the audience by wasting their time and completely eroding their trust.
So the practical application here is brutal, but it's absolutely necessary. Stop padding your work to hit arbitrary industry standards. It doesn't matter if you are prepping a slide deck for a boardroom meeting or writing a weekly diagnostic report for your executive team, designing a new user onboarding sequence, or even just writing a newsletter.
Yep, cut it all down.
Respect your audience's cognitive load. Deliver the concentrated nuggets of knowledge, deliver the actionable mechanism, and just mercilessly cut the fluff. If the core insight of a presentation only requires 10 minutes to explain, do not stretch it to a full hour just because the calendar block allows for it. Give them the 45 minutes back. They will remember you for it.
When we look at how these three concepts interlock, we really see the foundation of a highly sustainable, modern, strategic framework.
Yeah, it all connects.
The soul of a successful introduction to any audience is not built on relentless, unchanging hustle. It's not about hitting arbitrary volume metrics or forcing out content when your creative reservoir is entirely depleted. It is fundamentally about authentic, systemic adaptation.
Building an army of superfans requires you to first navigate and respect your own burnout. It requires the discipline to step back, let the front-facing engine idle, and gather back-end telemetry data when the landscape shifts. Then it requires you to aggressively rebalance your ask-to-give ratio, reducing the static and increasing the signal so you actually experience joy in your audience interactions again.
And ultimately, it requires the immense professional confidence to deliver hyper-focused, unpadded value. You have to trust that your concentrated, highly dense cookie is enough to prove your expertise without burying it under 8,000 words of extraneous cognitive load. That combination of back-end testing, relational giving, and extreme density, that is the true architecture of a successful introduction.
It really takes a staggering amount of confidence to hand someone a small, perfectly engineered cookie instead of a giant, stale, padded cake. But you know you need these superfans, and you know you need to offer them that perfect, fluff-free reader magnet to attract them in the first place.
Right, but how do you actually do it?
Exactly. How do you actually map out the high-level strategy to deploy it? How do you build the structural mechanism of this funnel without getting completely derailed by every shiny new marketing tactic that pops up on your timeline? That is exactly what we will unpack in the next chapter of this deep dive.
I can't wait. It's the transition from theory to structural architecture.
But before you go, I want you to consider a completely different angle on this. We are currently standing at the very beginning of an era where generative AI is about to flood the internet with infinite, effortlessly generated, perfectly padded 100,000-word books, sprawling articles, and endless videos.
Oh yeah, the tsunami is coming.
In a world where massive volume and endless fluff become free and ubiquitous, does that mean your tiny, hyper-focused, incredibly dense, unpadded 10-page cookie is about to become the single most valuable and trusted real estate on the internet?
Man, that changes the entire calculation of value.
Think about it. We'll see you in the next one.
What if the biggest mistake you're making in your business right now isn't a lack of effort, but, simply confusing your map with your footsteps?
Oh, man. That is, yeah.
Because think about it. Think about the sheer volume of motion you output in any given week. You're putting in like 60, maybe 80-hour weeks, you're constantly pivoting.
Right. Constantly.
You're downloading the newest project management software or, trying to decode the latest algorithm update. You're buying a masterclass on short-form video hooks, and you're just trying to implement every single marketing hack that pops up on your timeline.
Yeah, the endless timeline of hacks.
Exactly. You are sprinting, but when you look back at the end of the quarter, you haven't actually moved. You're just running in a circle, exhausted, sweating, and wondering why the person next to you, who, by the way, seems to be doing half the work, is somehow miles ahead.
Miles ahead. And it's frustrating, right?
It is. It's this universal grinding trap of modern entrepreneurship. We are just completely, totally exhausted by tactics.
We really are. And, it's a very specific type of exhaustion, too. It's not the physical tiredness of, like, digging a ditch. It's decision fatigue. It's mixed with this deep, creeping anxiety that you're always missing out on that one trick that's going to, unlock everything.
Your magic bullet.
Exactly. We see this constantly. People are just running their teams and themselves into the ground. They have a dozen plates spinning, like a TikTok account they don't really understand, an email sequence they copy-pasted from some guru, a pricing model they saw on Twitter.
But they don't actually know why they're doing it.
Right. They lack a cohesive underlying structure.
Yeah.
And the brutal truth here is that all that motion is essentially a defense mechanism. It's a defense mechanism against the harder, much slower work of figuring out what they actually want to achieve.
I mean, I've been there. I think anyone who has ever tried to build an audience or, launch a product has been there. It feels like you're doing the work because you're busy, but you're really just pulling levers on a machine that isn't plugged into anything.
That's a great way to put it.
And the cure to this, the antidote to this constant state of tactical panic is what we are diving into today. We're looking at a framework laid out by Tammi Labrecque in Chapter 2 of her book, Newsletter Ninja 2.
Yeah, fantastic book.
It really is. And the chapter is called Strategies versus Tactics Revisited Now with Added Goals. And the mission for this deep dive is to just strip away the noise. We are going to isolate the vital, deeply misunderstood differences between goals, strategies, and tactics.
Because once you actually understand the mechanics of how this triad operates,
Yeah.
it becomes the ultimate prerequisite for building a successful audience or business or newsletter without totally losing your mind.
It really is the prerequisite.
It's funny you call it a prerequisite because that's exactly how it functions, right?
Yeah.
You literally cannot operate efficiently until you internalize this hierarchy. But the problem is that the business world has completely diluted these terms.
Well, totally. It's all just corporate speak now.
Right. We sit in these Zoom meetings and use goal, strategy, and tactic interchangeably. Someone will say, our strategy this quarter is to post on Instagram Reels. And nobody bats an eye.
Yeah, everyone just nods along.
Exactly. But posting on Reels is absolutely not a strategy. Treating these distinct mechanical layers as synonyms is the exact root cause of the exhaustion you were just talking about. Labrecque's entire premise relies on separating these concepts into entirely different beasts, each with its own specific function and, really, its own lifespan.
Okay, well, let's actually define these beasts then, because I want to get past the corporate word soup.
Let's do it.
If I'm sitting down to map out my next year of business, and I start at the very top of this hierarchy with my goal,
Yeah.
what am I actually defining? Because, make more money feels a little too vague, but increase Q3 revenue by 12% using automated email flows feels like I'm already bleeding into the other categories.
You're right to be cautious of bleeding into the other categories. That happens all the time. At its purest level, according to the framework, the goal is the end game.
The end game.
Right. It is the ultimate need or desire from which everything else springs. It is the final destination on the horizon. It doesn't care how you get there. So actually, make more money is a perfectly valid goal.
Wait, really? Even though it's so broad?
Even though it's broad and lacks nuance, sure, but it establishes the true north of the operation. Everything downstream of that goal has to serve the function of generating revenue. But, you can refine it.
Like how?
Well, your goal could be achieve financial independence so I can quit my day job, or build an audience of 10,000 highly engaged, loyal readers, or become the go-to authority in my specific industry niche. The goal is the what and the why of your ultimate destination. It's static. It shouldn't change based on market conditions.
Okay, so the goal is the destination. I want to end up in a specific place. If my goal is the destination, then the strategy must be like the map I draw to get there.
A very specific kind of map, yeah. The strategy represents the high-level overarching decisions that dictate your general direction. It's the framework of decision-making that you commit to.
So it's not the granular stuff.
Not at all. It doesn't deal with the nitty-gritty details of the terrain. It deals with the philosophy of your approach.
Right.
So if your goal is to build an audience of 10,000 loyal readers, you have several potential strategies.
Right.
One strategy might be to position yourself as a premium, highly exclusive voice where access is limited, and that drives up perceived value.
Kind of like a velvet rope approach.
Exactly, the velvet rope. Another entirely different strategy would be to act as a mass market aggregator. Publishing high volumes of easily digestible content everywhere, all the time.
Oh, like the Gary V model.
Okay.
Just be everywhere.
Precisely. Both strategies could theoretically reach that same goal of 10,000 readers, but the rules you follow for each will be radically different.
Which brings us to the bottom layer, the tactics. So if the goal is the destination and the strategy is the map, then the tactic is what?
The vehicle, yeah, or the specific steps you take on the path. Tactics are the nimble, granular, in-the-moment actions taken to implement the strategy. They're the execution phase.
Okay, so applying that to the premium strategy.
Right. If your strategy is to be a premium, highly exclusive voice, your tactics might include hosting small, high-ticket webinars, or putting your writing behind a strict paywall, or even sending physical handwritten letters to top clients. Those are tactics. They are specific, actionable, and highly measurable.
Let me throw an analogy at you just to see if the mechanics of this hold up under pressure.
Go for it.
Let's say my absolute end game is to travel from New York to a specific beach in California. That's the destination. My strategy is the broader philosophy of the trip. So I decide I want a low-stress, highly scenic journey rather than prioritizing speed.
Okay, so you're not rushing.
Right. My strategy is take the scenic, coastal, and mountain highways, avoiding all major interstates. My tactics, then, are the microscopic decisions, when to hit the brakes, which specific lane to merge into, or, I don't know, choosing to pull into a Shell station instead of a Chevron when the gas tank gets below a quarter full. Does that tracking work, or is it too simplistic?
The tracking works beautifully for understanding the hierarchy, but we need to look at what happens when friction is introduced. Because in your road trip analogy, the road is already built.
That's true.
In business, you're often building the road while trying to drive on it. What makes Labrecque's approach so vital is that she emphasizes how these three elements must be complementary. She calls them yin and yang, or peanut butter and jelly.
Right, they have to work together.
But they strictly operate in a one-way flow of command. Tactics must serve the strategy. If you try to reverse the flow, or if you select tactics in a vacuum, the system collapses. And to really explore how this mechanics of alignment works, Labrecque uses this brilliant scenario in the text. I want you to imagine you are a city planner.
Okay, I can work with that. I'm a city planner sitting in an office looking at a map of a problematic district.
Exactly. And on your desk is a report about a highly dangerous four-way intersection.
Yeah.
Right now, it just has a blinking yellow light going one way and a blinking red light going the other. There are crashes there every single week.
Oof, not good.
Yeah, the mayor's mad. The mayor has tasked you with fixing it. So your goal, your unchangeable end game, is strictly defined. Reduce the number of accidents at this specific intersection.
Simple enough. Reduce the accidents. That's the destination.
Now, as a city planner, you have to decide on a strategy. You have to draw the map. And you have several entirely different philosophical approaches available to reach that single goal. Let's look at three of them.
Okay.
Strategy option 1. You can choose a strategy of education and information. You believe that if drivers are simply more aware of the danger, they will adjust their own behavior.
An optimistic approach.
Right. Strategy option 2, deterrence. You believe people won't change unless they face immediate negative consequences. Or strategy option 3, structural change. You don't trust human behavior at all, so you decide to physically alter the environment to force a safer outcome regardless of what the driver wants to do.
Three very distinct philosophies. I can see how this mirrors business, actually. You have the educational marketer, the aggressive scarcity marketer, and the product-led growth marketer. They are all trying to get the sale, but their overarching philosophies are entirely different.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Now let's drill down into the tactics, the specific levers you can pull for each of those maps. If you commit to strategy option 1, the educational approach, your tactics have to align with that philosophy.
So what does that look like?
You're going to authorize the installation of bright yellow warning signs half a mile down the road. You might send crews out to paint slow, dangerous intersection ahead directly onto the asphalt in massive reflective letters.
Right.
You might install specialized sensors that trigger a flashing beacon only when cross traffic is actively approaching. Every single one of those actions is a tactic, and every single one of them perfectly serves the strategy of educating the driver.
Right. And what's interesting here is looking at what I wouldn't do.
Yes, exactly.
If my stated strategy is education, I'm not going to install a massive suspension-destroying speed bump. A speed bump doesn't educate you. It doesn't give you information to make a better choice. It just violently punishes you for making the wrong one. If I put a speed bump in an educational zone, my tactics are out of alignment with my strategy.
You've hit on the exact friction point where most businesses fail. Let's look at that deterrent strategy option 2. If you switch your map from education to deterrence, your tactics change completely.
The signs are gone.
The painted signs disappear. Instead, you install that aggressive speed bump. You authorize a police cruiser to sit hidden behind a billboard with a radar gun, writing expensive tickets. You set up a digital speed display that flashes red and blue to publicly shame anyone going over the limit. The tactics are inherently punitive because the strategy is deterrence.
But wait, let me challenge this. Because if I'm a local resident living on that street, getting a speed bump installed is the goal. My neighbors and I petitioned the city for months. Our entire focus is get a speed bump. To us, that's not a tactic, that's the end game.
It absolutely feels that way from the micro perspective of the resident. But you have to zoom out to the macro perspective of the city planner's desk. For the system as a whole, the speed bump has no intrinsic value.
Because the city doesn't just want to build random bumps everywhere.
Exactly. The city doesn't exist to arbitrarily build bumps in the road. The speed bump is merely a disposable lever pulled to execute a broader traffic calming strategy, which in turn serves the ultimate goal of reducing accidents. If the speed bump gets installed, but accidents actually increase because people swerve into oncoming traffic to avoid it,
You rip it out.
the city planner will rip the speed bump out immediately. It was a failed tactic. It wasn't the goal.
That makes perfect sense. The resident is attached to the tactic, the planner is attached to the goal, and that leaves us with strategy option 3. Structural change. If I don't trust the drivers to learn from signs, and I don't want to dedicate police resources to punishing them, I change the physics of the intersection.
Exactly. And the tactics here are heavy-duty, capital-intensive actions. You rip out the blinking lights and install a standard, rigid, 3-color static traffic light. Or you bring in the bulldozers, tear up the pavement, and construct a massive concrete roundabout.
Ah, the roundabout.
A roundabout is a fascinating tactic because it relies entirely on physics rather than compliance. You literally cannot speed straight through a roundabout without destroying your car. It forces the behavioral change structurally.
So, zooming out from municipal traffic planning to you, the listener, sitting at your laptop trying to scale a business, the practical takeaway here is glaringly obvious when we use the city planner analogy, but we are completely blind to it in our own lives. We constantly select tactics without defining a strategy.
We do it every single day. Think about it. How often do you hear an entrepreneur say, I really need to start a TikTok account, or we need to run a massive Facebook ad campaign next week?
Literally all the time. It's the default state of panic.
But starting a TikTok account is a tactic. It is a speed bump. It is a painted sign. If you ask that entrepreneur, okay, what is the overarching strategy that TikTok account is going to serve? They usually just stare at you.
Deer in headlights.
Exactly. They don't have one. They're deploying tactics in a void. It's the exact equivalent of the city planner sending out a crew to throw down random painted signs, scatter a few speed bumps, and stick a police officer in the middle of the road without ever deciding if they are trying to educate, deter, or restructure.
And the result isn't safety.
No. The result is chaos, wasted budget, and angry drivers. You can never, ever select a tactic until you've drawn the map. Formulate the end game. Define the strategic philosophy. Then and only then, choose the vehicle.
Which brings us to what I consider the most insidious, dangerous trap in the entire creator economy, or any business ecosystem, really. The danger of copy-paste tactics.
Oh, this is the big one.
It is so human and so tempting. You look around your industry, you see someone who is incredibly successful. Maybe they are a millionaire, maybe they have millions of followers, and you think, I'm just going to reverse engineer exactly what they're doing.
Shall copy what works.
Right. I'll copy their hooks. I'll copy their pricing model. I'll copy their website layout. It feels like a brilliant shortcut. Why reinvent the wheel when someone else is already driving a Ferrari?
It feels like the smart play. It
Yeah.
feels like best practices. But Labrecque warns us that this is a fatal flaw that bankrupts businesses. Because you are only seeing the visible tactic. You are completely blind to the invisible strategy driving it.
That's the danger.
And a tactic that works brilliantly for one person can mechanically destroy your business if your overarching strategies are incompatible. It's like, well, it's like trying to run an incredibly well-designed iOS application on an Android phone. It doesn't matter how good the app is. The underlying operating system is different. It will crash.
Labrecque uses an example in the text that perfectly illustrates the underlying mechanics of this failure. She pulls from the independent publishing world, which is her primary audience, but the mechanics apply to software, e-commerce, consulting, literally anything. Walk us through the indie author example because it is a masterclass in why copy-pasting fails.
It really is a masterclass. Let's dive deep into the mechanics of how these platforms actually operate, because that's where the trap is hidden. Imagine you are an independent romance author. Your goal is simple. Maximize your overall income so you can write full-time.
Great goal.
Now, you need a strategy. You look at the landscape and decide your strategy is to be completely exclusive to Amazon, specifically enrolling all your books in their Kindle Select program.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that strategy. Why would exclusivity be a good map to follow?
Because Amazon has a subscription service called Kindle Unlimited, or KU. Readers pay roughly $12 a month, and they can read as many books in the KU library as they want.
All right.
Romance readers are voracious. I mean, they might read 5 or 6 books a week. They don't want to pay $5 per book. They want the all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yeah.
By giving Amazon exclusivity, Amazon puts your books in that buffet. Now, here is the crucial mechanic: how you get paid.
Right. How does the money work?
You don't get paid a flat fee when someone downloads the book. You get paid from a global fund based on the exact number of pages a reader actually flicks through, known as the KENPC, Kindle Edition Normalized Page Count.
So if I'm an author in this program, my entire business model, my entire strategy is predicated on velocity and read-through.
Yes.
I need a reader to pick up book 1, read every single page, immediately borrow book 2, read every single page, and so on. Because the reader isn't paying out of pocket for each book, the friction to start reading is effectively zero.
Exactly. Amazon's algorithm heavily favors exclusive books, pushing them in visibility because they want to keep subscribers on their platform. So your strategy is highly tuned. Capture the KU subscriber base, feed them a massive backlist of exclusive books, and rack up millions of page reads. That is your map.
Okay, I have my map. I am an Amazon exclusive author optimizing for page reads. I go to a writing conference, and I end up sitting at a bar next to a New York Times bestselling romance author.
The dream scenario.
Right. She is making millions of dollars a year. She is objectively at the top of the game. I ask her for advice. I say, what's the one tactic that exploded your career? And she leans in and says, perma-free. I make the first book in every single one of my series permanently free to download. $0. It acts as a massive funnel.
And human nature takes over, right? Your brain instantly fires off.
Yeah.
A New York Times bestseller does this. She has the results I want. I'm going to log into my dashboard tonight and make my first book perma-free. Copy, paste, succeed.
But if I do that, Labrecque says I will actively destroy my income. Why? Mechanically, why does a tactic that generates millions for her bankrupt me?
Because you copied the tactic without asking about her underlying strategy. If you had stopped to ask why she was doing it, she would have explained that her goal was different. Her goal was to avoid dependence on the whims of a single massive corporation like Amazon. Therefore, her strategy was going wide.
Going wide meaning not exclusive.
Exactly. She refuses exclusivity. She sells her books on Apple Books, Barnes & Noble Nook, Kobo, Google Play, and Amazon simultaneously.
And the mechanics of those wide platforms are completely different from Kindle Unlimited.
Night and day. Apple Books and Kobo don't have a massive all-you-can-eat subscription buffet driving free discovery. On those platforms, readers are actively pulling out their credit cards and paying a la carte for every single book.
Okay, so the friction is much higher.
The friction to convince a reader to take a chance on an unknown author for $4.99 is massive. So, for the wide author, making the first book permanently free is a brilliant, necessary tactic. It removes the financial friction entirely. A reader on Apple Books downloads the free book, falls in love with the characters, and then happily pulls out their credit card to buy books 2, 3, and 4 at full price. The perma-free tactic perfectly serves the strategy of overcoming the high friction of a la carte platforms.
I see the collision course now. If my strategy relies on Kindle Unlimited, my readers already read for free. They have this subscription. There is no financial friction for them to try my first book. If I blindly copy the perma-free tactic, I am bringing a solution to a problem I don't have. But wait, why does it actually hurt me? Why not just have it be free anyway?
Because of the algorithmic mechanics. First, to make a book permanently free on Amazon, you usually have to violate the exclusivity clause by making it free on another platform and forcing Amazon to price match it. If Amazon catches you, they can strip you of your KU status entirely, destroying your entire strategy.
Yeah.
Second, even if you manage it, you are now giving away the page reads for book 1. You earn 0 fractions of a cent for those pages. Third, and most dangerously, you are polluting your algorithmic data.
Oh, this is fascinating. Walk me through the data pollution. What does that mean?
Amazon's recommendation engine relies on also bots and reader behavior. When your book is exclusively in KU, it is being read by KU subscribers who will go on to read your other books in KU. But when you make a book permanently free to the general public, you attract thousands of freebie seekers who do not have Kindle Unlimited subscriptions.
They just want free stuff.
They just scour Amazon for free stuff. They download your book, maybe they read it, maybe they don't. But when they finish it, they aren't going to buy book 2. And they can't borrow it because they aren't KU subscribers. You have just flooded your funnel with the wrong type of customer.
Which confuses the algorithm.
Completely. Amazon's algorithm looks at this massive drop-off between book 1 and book 2, concludes your series is terrible, and stops promoting you. The NYT bestsellers tactic, blindly applied to your strategy, literally breaks the machine that pays your rent.
That is a terrifying mechanical reality. It perfectly illustrates why surface-level observation is so dangerous. But I have to play devil's advocate here because this is where my brain, and I think a lot of people's brains, get stuck.
Okay, let's hear it.
It takes a massive amount of ego to look at someone who is demonstrably more successful than you, someone who has achieved exactly what you want to achieve, and say, no thanks, I'm not going to take your advice.
Isn't there a risk of becoming so rigidly attached to your own strategy that you ignore genuine innovation?
Yeah.
How do you balance trusting your strategy against the very real possibility that your strategy might just be wrong?
That is the tightrope walk of entrepreneurship, isn't it? But Labrecque's counter to this is essential. She is absolutely not saying you should plug your ears and ignore successful people. That would be foolish.
What she is saying is that you are asking those successful people the wrong questions. You are interrogating the wrong layer of the triad.
Okay, let's unpack this. How should I interrogate them?
When you sit next to the wildly successful person at the bar, you shouldn't ask, what specific marketing lever did you pull today? You shouldn't ask, what tactic are you using? You need to elevate the conversation. You should ask, when you were at my stage, what were your ultimate goals? And what overarching strategy did you design to get there? You don't ask what they are doing. You ask why they are doing it and how they built the map.
That's a massive perspective shift. It moves the conversation from imitation to analysis. You are asking for their operating system, not their app.
Exactly. Because when someone gives you unsolicited business advice, they are almost always handing you a highly specific, context-dependent tactic based on their own invisible strategy. They assume you have the same map they do.
And usually you don't.
Almost never. So the practical takeaway for you, listening to this right now, is a filtering mechanism. Before you adopt any new tool, any new software, any new marketing trick you see on YouTube, you must stop, look at your own map, and ask, mechanically, does this specific tactic serve my chosen strategy?
And if it doesn't?
If the answer is no, you must develop the extreme discipline to just let it pass by. It doesn't matter if Elon Musk himself told you it was a good idea. If it doesn't fit your map, it will drive you off a cliff.
Which requires an incredible amount of mental discipline. It is so hard to ignore the noise. And this leads perfectly into the next major concept in the chapter, which addresses why there is so much noise to begin with. Labrecque uses this fantastic contrasting imagery to describe the differing lifespans and characteristics of strategies versus tactics. She compares your strategy to the Titanic, and she compares your tactics to a shiny squirrel.
It's a slightly humorous image, but it captures the operational reality perfectly. She points out that strategies are, by design, meant to be long-term, heavy, lumbering things. Like an ocean liner, a strategy is massive. It takes a massive amount of energy to get it moving, and once it is moving, it has immense momentum.
It's hard to steer.
You cannot turn the Titanic on a dime. If you try to violently change your strategy every week, switching from a high-ticket consulting model to a low-ticket mass volume model, and then back again, you will tear the ship apart. Strategy requires deep, long-term commitment.
You set the course and you write it out, but tactics operate on a completely different physical law.
Entirely different. Tactics are not ocean liners. Tactics are nimble. They are quick. They are cheap to deploy. And crucially, they are highly ruthlessly disposable. But because they are so cheap and so fast, they present a constant psychological danger. Shiny squirrel syndrome.
Ooh, a squirrel.
Exactly.
I know that feeling intimately. You are sitting at your desk, trying to write a blog post, which is a slow, steady tactic serving a content strategy. Then you get a notification that a competitor just went viral using a new AI video generator. Suddenly, the blog post feels boring. You abandon the work, sign up for the AI tool, spend 4 hours learning it, and generate a terrible video.
Yep, every time.
You chase the shiny squirrel because the dopamine hit of the new tactic is so much stronger than the satisfaction of executing the old one. We've all been there. But here's where it gets really interesting, mechanically speaking. Why are we forced to chase squirrels? If a tactic works, if running a specific type of Facebook ad gets you cheap leads, why wouldn't that tactic just work forever? Why do they die so fast?
It's a great question, and Labrecque details several specific, systemic reasons why tactics have such notoriously short lifespans. The first reason is simple human psychology. They get overused. When a tactic is brand new, it stands out. It disrupts the pattern. Do you remember the early days of the internet when the first pop-up ads appeared?
Unfortunately, yes. They were terrifying, but incredibly effective.
They were highly effective. The click-through rates on early pop-up ads and banner ads were astronomical because people had never seen them before. The tactic worked brilliantly. But then everyone saw how well it worked. Every website installed pop-ups. And what happened?
We ignored them.
The human brain adapted. We developed banner blindness. We learned to intuitively locate and click the X without ever consciously registering what the ad was selling. The tactic didn't stop working because the technology broke. It stopped working because consumer psychology neutralized it through overexposure. The same thing happens with email subject lines, YouTube thumbnail styles, and cold call scripts. Overuse kills the tactic.
That makes sense. The market builds an immunity to the virus. What's the second reason tactics die?
The second reason is out of your control entirely. The platforms change the rules. You are playing in their sandbox, and they own the physics engine. Google, Amazon, Facebook, TikTok, they constantly update their algorithms. A tactic that is perfectly aligned with the algorithm on Monday can be rendered completely useless or even penalized by an update on Tuesday.
The dreaded core update. It is the absolute graveyard of tactics. Entire SEO agencies have been wiped out overnight because a tactic that previously signaled high quality to Google suddenly signaled spam.
Exactly. The platform's strategy usually to increase their own ad revenue or keep users on their site longer shifts, and they change the rules to support their new strategy. If your tactic relied on the old rules, you are dead in the water.
Wow.
The third reason tactics die is a darker one. Scammers. Bad actors will find a legitimate tactic, discover a loophole in it, abuse it at scale until it breaks the system, and then the platform will step in and nuke the tactic for everyone to fix the leak.
Labrecque mentions a very specific, fascinating piece of history from the indie publishing world regarding a tactic called bouncy boxes.
Okay, you have to explain the mechanics of a bouncy box because that sounds ridiculous, but I know there's real money behind it.
It was incredibly lucrative, and it perfectly illustrates this point. Remember how we discussed that in Kindle Unlimited, authors are paid based on the number of pages read?
Right.
Amazon's early algorithm-tracked page reads by looking at the last page you sync to on your device. So legitimate authors used a helpful tactic. They put a link at the very front of their book in the table of contents that said, "Click here to skip to the bonus epilogue." Readers loved it. It was a good user experience tactic.
Sounds harmless. Why is that bad?
It was harmless until scammers realized how the tracking mechanism worked. Scammers began uploading absolute garbage books, thousands of pages of randomly generated text. At the very front of the book, they put a massive enticing link. Click here to see the secret ending. Or click here to enter the giveaway. When a reader clicked that link, it bounced them all the way to the 99% mark at the back of the book.
Oh no, I see where this is going.
The algorithm saw that the reader went from page 1 to page 3,000 in 2 seconds. It registered that the entire book had been read. The scammers were stealing millions of dollars out of the global payout pool using this bouncy box tactic.
That is insane.
When Amazon finally caught on to the scale of the abuse, they didn't just ban the scammers, they radically changed how the entire tracking system worked, and they began penalizing any book that had links jumping the reader to the back. Overnight, a completely legitimate, helpful tactic used by honest authors to serve their readers became a bannable offense. Scammers murdered the tactic.
That is a brutal ecosystem. Overuse, algorithm updates, and scammers. Are there any positive reasons why tactics change?
There are. The fourth reason is simply that technology evolves and removes friction. Sometimes things just get better, and the old, clunky tactic is no longer necessary. The text gives two great examples. There used to be a time when the tactic for giving a reader a free digital book, your reader magnet, was a logistical nightmare. Well, the author had to email the reader a .mobi file and then spend hours doing tech support, trying to teach a 60-year-old reader how to plug their Kindle into their computer with the USB cable, find the internal storage drive, and manually sideload the document. It was a miserable tactic, but it was necessary to serve the strategy of building a mailing list.
High friction, low conversion.
Exactly. Then a platform called BookFunnel was invented. BookFunnel completely solved the tech support problem. They provided a seamless automated delivery system that pushed the book directly to the reader's device. The technology evolved, and the old tactic of manually emailing files and teaching sideloading was joyfully discarded.
Oh, thank goodness.
The same thing happened with formatting software. Authors used to wrestle with clunky HTML coding or pay hundreds of dollars to format a single book. Then a program called Vellum came along, allowing beautiful formatting with a single click. The tactic changed because the tool improved.
So, if tactics are this fragile, if they are constantly being destroyed by overuse, algorithms, scammers, and tech updates, how do you operate without losing your mind? What is the operating philosophy to handle this chaos?
Labrecque distills it into a core mantra. It is the absolute golden rule for managing a modern business. Think strategically, but act tactically.
Think strategically, but act tactically. It sounds like a bumper sticker, but mechanically it's a survival mechanism.
It absolutely is. What it means in practice is that you must be fiercely stubborn about your strategy. You hold on to the wheel of the Titanic. If your strategy is to build a premium exclusive brand, you don't abandon that strategy just because the market gets tough for a month. You commit.
But the tactics.
But simultaneously, you must be highly flexible, almost ruthless, and completely unattached to your tactics. You have to view tactics as disposable tools. If a Facebook ad tactic stops working because of an iOS privacy update, you do not mourn the tactic. You don't write angry blog posts about how unfair Mark Zuckerberg is. You drop the dead tactic, you find a new one that serves your premium strategy, and you keep moving. Stubborn on the macro, hyper-flexible on the micro.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time mapping out this grand, almost philosophical theory of business architecture. We've talked about traffic lights and ocean liners, but let's bring this completely down to earth.
Let's do it.
How does this grand framework actually apply to the specific practical topic of Tammi Labrecque's book? She's writing a manual about author mailing lists and reader magnets. How does this massive triad map onto the simple act of sending an email?
This is where the theory becomes purely actionable. Labrecque uses this chapter to lay out the ultimate simplified triad that is going to dictate the entire rest of the reader's journey through her methodology. If you understand this specific application, the rest of audience building becomes mechanics rather than magic. Let's build the triad for her specific use case.
Let's do it. Top of the pyramid, the destination.
First, your goal. In the specific context of her book and the system she is teaching, the goal is stripped down to its absolute essence. Grow your mailing list. Build direct owned line of communication with a large group of people who want to hear from you. That is the end game.
Okay, destination. A massive, engaged audience that I actually own rather than renting them from an algorithm. I love that goal. So how do we get there? What map are we drawing?
Second, your strategy. How do we convince people to hand over their highly guarded email addresses? We use a strategy borrowed from the retail world, the time-tested loss leader strategy.
Oh, this is one of my favorite economic concepts. Let's really explore the mechanics of a loss leader, because understanding why it works changes how you view your entire business.
It's a foundational concept. A loss leader is a product or service that a business intentionally sells at a substantial financial loss. They're actively bleeding money on that specific transaction, and they do it simply to entice a customer to walk through the door or enter their ecosystem.
Like the classic grocery store example.
The classic example. Think about the rotisserie chickens at Costco or the Thanksgiving turkey at your local supermarket. They might sell that turkey for pennies on the pound, taking a massive loss on every single bird that goes through the checkout.
Which, if you don't understand the strategy, looks like terrible business. Why on earth would a multi-billion-dollar corporation intentionally lose money on millions of turkeys?
Because they possess the data And they understand the mechanics of the ecosystem. They know that nobody walks into a grocery store, buys only a dripping raw turkey, and walks out. To cook that turkey, you need roasting pans, spices, stuffing, cranberry sauce, potatoes, wine, and a pie for dessert.
Right.
The supermarket takes a $5 loss on the liter to get you into the store, knowing they will make a $50 profit on the rest of your cart. The loss leader is an acquisition strategy.
You see it everywhere once you know what to look for. Gillette practically gave away the razor handles at a loss because they knew you'd be locked into buying their high-margin razor blades for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Sony and Microsoft historically take huge losses manufacturing the physical PlayStation and Xbox consoles because the console is just the loss leader to get you to buy a dozen high-margin games and a monthly online subscription. It is an ecosystem play.
It's brilliant. So, applying this to Labrecque's framework for audience building, your strategy is to use a digital loss leader to get people to walk into your store. You take a loss, which in the digital creator world is usually the time, energy, and money it costs you to produce a high-quality piece of content, and you give it away for free.
Just to get them on the list.
You give it away to convince them to join your mailing list, knowing that once they are on the list and in your ecosystem, you have the opportunity to offer them your actual products, your backlist of books, your paid courses, your high-ticket coaching for a profit over the long term. That is the strategic map. Loss leader for long-term customer lifetime value.
Which brings us finally to the bottom of the pyramid, the execution phase, the tactic.
The tactic is the actual physical or digital item you choose to give away. It is what Labrecque affectionately refers to as the cookie or the reader magnet.
The cookie. I love that term. So when a creator is sitting at their desk, staring at a whiteboard, completely paralyzed by indecision, asking themselves, should my freebie be a PDF cheat sheet? Should it be a 5-day email course, a private podcast feed, a prequel novella, a discount code? They need to realize that they are agonizing over a tactic.
Precisely. They are agonizing over the speed bump. The specific item you give away is just a single, highly disposable tactic. Its only job, its entire mechanical purpose for existing, is to serve the loss leader strategy, which serves the goal of growing the list.
That takes so much pressure off.
It really does. The practical takeaway here is that recognizing this hierarchy completely removes the anxiety of choosing the perfect cookie. There is no perfect cookie. There's only a cookie that aligns with your strategy. Your cookie must be designed specifically to attract the right kind of customer to your store. If Costco started giving away free vegan protein smoothies at the door, instead of cheap hot dogs and rotisserie chickens, they would attract a crowd. But it wouldn't be the crowd that buys bulk toilet paper and tires. The tactic would be misaligned with the strategy.
That is such a vital point. The volume of the crowd doesn't matter if the alignment is wrong. So if we pull back and look at this entire deep dive, if we connect the city planners, the Amazon algorithms, the Titanics, the squirrels, and the Costco rotisserie chickens, what does this all mean? We arrive at the absolute beating heart of this chapter.
The core insight.
The synthesis is this. Success in business, in audience building, in art isn't about possessing the best tactics. It's not about having the flashiest TikTok transitions or the cleverest Facebook ad copy or even the most beautifully designed, high production value free cookie.
No, it is not. If your foundation is cracked, the paint job doesn't matter.
Success is entirely about alignment. It is about forging the tightest, most unbreakable chain of logic between your ultimate, unchangeable destination, the philosophical map you draw to navigate the terrain, and the specific, highly disposable steps you take on the ground. Without that alignment, even a brilliant tactic, even a tactic that generates millions for the person sitting next to you is just a distraction. It's just a shiny squirrel leading you straight off a cliff.
Alignment is the only thing that sustains a business long term. You must establish the hierarchy. Goal first, strategy second, tactics last. And the flow of command only goes one way.
So I want to leave you, the listener, with a challenge, a mental audit. I want you to look at your calendar right now. Think about the last 3 tools, hacks, apps, or marketing tactics you spent time implementing in your own work over the last month.
Really look at them.
Look at them, honestly. Were they carefully, deliberately chosen to serve a specific long-term strategy that you actively designed? Or did you just see someone else doing it? Were you genuinely building a road, or were you just mesmerized by a shiny squirrel?
It's an uncomfortable audit, but it's the most profitable question you can ask yourself.
It changes everything. And now that we have our framework, now that we know we need to deploy a cookie as a tactic to serve our loss leader strategy, the real granular work begins. because a bad cookie can do just as much damage as a bad map.
Oh, absolutely.
What exactly makes a good reader magnet? What are the mechanics of desire that make a stranger hand over their email? And perhaps most surprisingly, why are the massive, universally appealing freebies, the ones that absolutely everyone in the world wants, actually the most toxic, dangerous things you could possibly offer to your audience?
That's a fun one.
It is a fascinating psychological puzzle, and it's exactly what we will be tearing apart in the next deep dive. What if the biggest mistake you can make in your business or, your creative career is actually trying to attract everyone?
I mean, it goes against everything we're taught, right?
Right. Like, what if giving away a free iPad to build your email list is actually the fastest, most efficient way to just completely destroy it?
It sounds totally crazy. It really feels like an attack on common sense.
Totally.
Because we operate in this culture, whether you're in Silicon Valley or indie publishing or even brick and mortar retail, where volume is the undisputed king.
Yeah, you're basically taught from day one that the top of your sales funnel needs to be as wide as humanly possible.
Exactly. But when you start looking at the hidden architecture of how digital audiences actually function, and specifically how algorithms judge your worth based on the behavior of that audience, that whole, bigger is better obsession is a lethal trap.
So today, we are taking a magnifying glass to the idea of reader magnets. We're pulling from the foundational frameworks in Chapter 3 of our source material to figure out why actively shrinking your potential audience is actually the smartest thing you can do for your career.
It really is. It changes everything.
It does. Whether you are an author writing your debut novel, a digital creator trying to build a community, or like a tech founder trying to sell software subscriptions, we are going to dismantle the myth of the massive crowd.
Yeah, we have to stop thinking about casting a giant, indiscriminate net into the ocean.
Right, because in this deep dive, you are going to learn the algorithmic danger of attracting the wrong people, the precise psychological architecture of a perfect incentive, and this is my favorite part, how to build a highly specialized filter that catches only your superfans.
It really requires a complete rewiring of how you view acquisition. We have to start thinking about designing a highly calibrated, extremely selective habitat.
But before we can really dissect why that iPad giveaway is a ticking time bomb for your business, we need to strip this down to the studs. Like, what is a reader magnet in the first place?
Right. Let's define the terms.
In the creator space, you will often hear people affectionately call this a cookie.
I love that term.
Me too.
Yeah.
But the core DNA of this concept is not some new internet age invention. It's pulled directly from a business strategy that is, a century old, right? The loss leader.
Yes, the classic loss leader.
Yeah.
The source material uses this incredibly grounding analogy about the grocery store flyer that arrives in your mailbox every week.
Okay, let's unpack this because it's hilarious but dead on. Your reader magnet is basically a pile of cheap hamburger.
Exactly. The grocery store model is the perfect lens for this because it strips away all the abstraction of digital marketing. Think about the physical mechanics of a supermarket. They operate on notoriously razor-thin profit margins. Sometimes it's literally 1 or 2%. Yet every single week, they take out these expensive full-page ads to announce they are selling chicken breasts for $1.99 a pound.
Right, or like cases of soda for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, and they are hemorrhaging money on that specific chicken breast. They are buying it wholesale for more than they are selling it to you.
You are literally taking a financial loss to put that hamburger in the window.
You are. You're taking a loss on the product, but, and here's the key, you are purchasing human behavior.
Okay, explain that. Purchasing behavior.
Well, the supermarket knows that once you cross the physical threshold of their sliding glass doors to claim that cheap ground beef, the friction of the transaction isn't broken.
Oh, I see.
You are now inside their ecosystem. You have a cart, and human nature dictates that you are not going to wait in the checkout line holding a single package of discounted meat.
No, of course not. You're going to remember you need milk.
Right. You're going to grab a $6 box of cereal that costs them maybe 50 cents to manufacture. You might wander into the premium cheese aisle or, pick up a 12-pack of craft beer.
Guilty.
Right. By the time you reach the register, that $2 loss on the beef has generated $40 in gross profit across the rest of your basket.
Okay, so that makes total sense in a physical space because the store is banking on convenience and impulse. But how does that translate to you, the listener, if you are sitting at a laptop trying to build a digital business?
The translation is surprisingly direct.
Because if I'm an author offering a free digital novella, or a software developer offering a free 14-day premium trial. There isn't a physical cart to fill up.
No, the card isn't physical, but the psychological threshold is exactly the same.
Yeah.
The concept of the loss leader in the digital space is about initiating a transaction of trust.
A transaction of trust.
Yeah. When a reader hands over their private email address in exchange for your free novella, or when a user signs up for your free software tier, they're making a micro-commitment.
They're basically saying, I trust you enough not to spam me.
Exactly. They're signaling that they trust your brand enough to let you into their inbox. Your goal isn't just to be generous and hand out free art or free code out of the goodness of your heart.
Right, this is a business strategy.
The goal is to lower the barrier to entry so dramatically that people can experience the quality of your specific world without any financial risk.
So once they realize the hamburger is delicious, they look around the rest of your digital store to see what else you have on the shelves.
Exactly. Which means your free incentive cannot be arbitrary.
Right. So say I am running a high-end vegan bakery.
Okay, good example.
Putting a cheap, discounted pork chop in my front window as a loss leader is going to bring in foot traffic, sure.
Lots of foot traffic.
But it is going to bring in people who want cheap pork.
Right.
When they look around and see $8 vegan cupcakes, they're going to walk right back out.
And that is the exact pivot point where most creators completely destroy their own businesses.
Wow. Destroy it completely.
Completely. They recognize that they need a loss leader. They understand they need an incentive to get people through the door. But then they panic about the numbers.
They look at their email list of like 12 people.
Yeah, and they think, I need to grow this instantly. I need thousands of people right now.
So instead of offering the digital equivalent of a vegan cupcake to attract vegan customers,
They put a massive glittering pork chop in the window.
the iPad.
The iPad, or a $500 Amazon gift card, or a brand new Kindle Fire.
Okay, I hear you, but, and I think a lot of listeners will feel the same way, my brain is screaming that this violates basic math.
How so?
Because every marketing guru on the internet tells you that the money is in the list.
They do say that.
Right. So if I offer an iPad giveaway and I run a few cheap Facebook ads to promote it, I could easily collect 10,000 email addresses in a matter of days.
You definitely could.
So I now have a list of 10,000 human beings. Those are 10,000 lottery tickets. Even if I have a terrible conversion rate, say, just 1% of those people buy my $10 sci-fi novel or my $100 productivity course. I am making money.
It seems logical.
You are telling me I should willingly choose to not collect those 10,000 leads.
I am telling you, those 10,000 people are not leads.
They're not.
No. They are a localized infection that will rot your digital infrastructure from the inside out.
Okay, that is a strong statement. Explain that.
We need to look under the hood at how email service providers and inbox algorithms actually function. The people entering an iPad giveaway are what the industry calls freebie seekers.
Okay.
Let's examine their psychology. Do they care about the intricate world building in your sci-fi novel? Do they care about your unique framework for time management?
Obviously not. They
Right.
just want a piece of expensive electronics for free.
Right. They are highly motivated to give you an email address and completely unmotivated to ever interact with you again once the winner is announced.
Okay, but again, even if they don't care, isn't it just a numbers game?
No, because let's look at the mechanical damage they inflict on you. First, there is the literal financial cost. You do not send mass emails from your personal Gmail account, right?
Right, you use an email service provider, an ESP, like MailChimp or ConvertKit or MailerLite.
Exactly. And these companies charge you based on the size of your list.
Ah.
So you are now paying a premium monthly subscription fee to host 10,000 people who are effectively dead weight. You are paying rent for ghosts.
Oh, man. Paying rent for ghosts. That's a brutal way to put it. But, okay, that's annoying. Still, if that 1% conversion rate holds up, maybe the math still works. Like maybe the sales cover the cost of the email software.
But that conversion rate won't hold up because the emails will never reach the inbox.
Wait, why not?
This is the hidden danger of vanity metrics. The algorithms guarding our inboxes at Google, Yahoo, Apple are incredibly sophisticated now. They do not just look for spam keywords like Viagra or Nigerian prince anymore.
Okay, so what are they looking for?
They assign a hidden, constantly updating trust score to your specific sender domain.
Wait, like a credit score for my email address?
Exactly like a credit score. And that score is largely based on engagement.
Oh, no.
Yeah. When you send out your weekly newsletter to those 10,000 people announcing your new book or your new product, Google watches what happens.
And they see that 9,950 of those people did not open the email.
Precisely. Hundreds of them swiped left and immediately deleted it without even reading.
Or they mark it as spam.
Yes. Dozens of them. Annoyed that you were bothering them when they didn't win the iPad? Mark the email as spam.
And Google's algorithm looks at that behavior and says, clearly this sender is producing garbage that nobody wants.
Exactly. The algorithm assumes you are a nuisance. Your sender reputation plummets. So what happens to the next email you send?
Google silently routes it straight to the promotions tab.
Or worse, directly into the spam folder. And the real tragedy here is the collateral damage.
Collateral damage.
Think about it. You might have 50 genuine hardcore fans on that list of 10,000 people who actually wanted your sci-fi book.
Oh, wow.
But because the freebie seekers destroyed your sender reputation, your emails go to spam for everyone. The people who want to hear from you will never even see your message. You have actively paid money to silence yourself.
That is genuinely terrifying. It completely reframes the objective. We naturally assume that reader magnets fall into a binary category. Like you either have an incentive or you don't.
Right, but it's not binary at all.
Because the source material is arguing that magnets fall on a spectrum of danger. The value of the magnet is not determined by its monetary cost, but entirely by the type of person it attracts.
Exactly. The iPad is the worst kind of magnet because its appeal is universal. Universal appeal is the enemy of the creator.
That's a great quote.
A truly effective reader magnet must do the exact opposite. It must be something that only your perfect subscriber would ever want.
So, if giving away a luxury item creates a bloated list of algorithmic poison, the obvious question is how we actually design the bait to catch only the right people.
Yes, let's look at the best type of magnet mentioned in the text.
Instead of an iPad, the author suggests offering bonus content that is deeply, inextricably entwined with your existing catalog. The example used is an exclusive bonus epilogue to a popular book.
It's the perfect filter.
Because if I am a reader who just finished a novel, and I see a link for a free epilogue showing the characters 10 years in the future, I'm clicking that.
But look at the friction involved in that decision. To want that epilogue, someone has to have read the book.
Right.
They have to have enjoyed the book enough to want more of it. They have to actually care about those specific characters.
That's self-selecting.
Entirely.
Yeah.
If you offer a bonus epilogue as your reader magnet, you are not going to get 10,000 signups in a weekend. You might only get 100. But the quality of those 100 subscribers is astronomically high.
Because they are already invested. They aren't cold leads. They are proven consumers of your specific world.
They are your super fans. They loved your product so much that they willingly traded their private contact information, which, is a heavily guarded currency today, just to spend 10 more minutes in your ecosystem.
That makes so much sense.
Those 100 people will open every single email you send. They will eagerly anticipate your announcements. When your next product launches, they will buy it on day one at full price without needing a discount.
And they will leave 5-star reviews.
Exactly. The vanity metric of 10,000 unengaged subscribers gives you a cheap dopamine hit today. But those 100 hyper-engaged superfans are the foundation of a sustainable long-term business.
This shifts the entire paradigm of what a reader magnet is supposed to do. It's not a magnet at all. The terminology is almost misleading.
It really is.
It shouldn't be designed to attract everything made of metal. It should be designed as a highly selective filter. A truly successful incentive should actively, aggressively repel the wrong people.
Repulsion is a feature, not a bug. If someone encounters your free offer and thinks, this really isn't my thing, you should celebrate that.
Because you just saved money.
You saved yourself the financial cost of hosting them on your ESP, and you protected your domain's sender reputation from their inevitable apathy.
Okay, so if we know our incentive needs to act as a hyper-specific filter, how do we actually engineer that? How do we calibrate the filter so it lets the wrong people pass through but perfectly catches the right ones?
This brings us to the absolute bedrock concept of the source material.
Alignment.
Yes. Alignment is the mechanism that determines subscriber quality. The equation is incredibly straightforward.
Let's hear it.
The quality of a new subscriber correlates directly and flawlessly with how tightly aligned your freebie is with your main product.
Okay, so the more specific, the more niche, the more targeted the alignment, the higher your chances of converting a casual sign-up into a rabid superfan.
Exactly. The text uses the romance publishing industry to illustrate this, and honestly, the examples are incredibly eliminating.
They really are, because they highlight just how violently specific consumer tastes can be. If you are an outsider to the romance genre, you might look at a bookshelf and think, romance is romance. It's people falling in love.
Right, but it's not that simple.
Not at all. The author breaks down the paranormal romance subgenre to show how fractured the audience really is. She specifically highlights the divide between readers of wolf shifter romance and bear shifter romance.
It is a brilliant case study in consumer psychology.
The author notes that there are voracious readers who will consume 5 wolf shifter novels a week, but who will absolutely refuse, under any circumstances, to read a bear shifter novel. The quote from the text is great, she jokes. Who could blame them? Bears are smelly and mean.
It's a funny quote, but the humor masks a very severe business reality.
Why does that reader hate the bear but love the wolf?
Because it's not about the literal animal. It is about the emotional architecture and the specific tropes the reader is seeking. A wolf shifter story inherently promises themes of pack dynamics, alpha hierarchies, loyalty to the group, and community tension.
Right. There's a whole social structure there.
Exactly. A bear shifter story, traditionally, is about a solitary, grumpy, isolated protector out in the woods.
So the reader isn't choosing an animal, they are choosing a psychological experience.
Yes, they have a highly specific emotional itch they want scratched. If they want the drama of pack politics, handing them a story about a lone lumberjack bear is going to disappoint them, even if the writing is technically brilliant.
They will feel betrayed by the packaging.
Exactly.
Scratching the specific itch. That is the goal of alignment. Let's look at how this plays out mechanically when creators try to collaborate. The source material talks about book funnel bundles.
Oh, this is a perfect example of alignment in action.
For you listening, BookFunnel is a platform authors use to distribute free ebooks, and a bundle is essentially a joint promotion. 10 different authors pool their free reader magnets onto a single landing page and drive all their collective traffic to it. The idea is to cross-pollinate audiences.
It's a standard digital marketing tactic. It's akin to software companies doing co-marketing webinars or YouTubers doing collaboration videos. But the success of these bundles lives and dies entirely on the principle of alignment.
Let's map out the scenarios. Suppose you are an author who writes sweet, small-town cowboy romance.
Okay, sweet cowboys. Got it.
Your main product is a 10-book series about cowboys. You write a prequel novella about one of the cowboys to use as your reader magnet. Scenario 1. You join a BookFunnel bundle with 9 other authors who also exclusively write small-town cowboy romance.
That is perfect, strict alignment.
Ding, ding, ding.
The readers landing on that page are not general readers. They are not even general romance readers. They are readers actively hunting for cowboy tropes. When they see your cowboy magnet, they will download it. When you eventually email them about your paid cowboy books, they will buy them. The promise of the magnet matches the reality of your product perfectly.
Okay, scenario 2. You get a little greedy. You want more traffic. You take your sweet cowboy romance magnet and you put it in a massive summer romance bundle.
Uh-oh.
Now it is sitting next to a billionaire CEO romance, a dark mafia romance, a college sports romance, and a historical Regency romance.
The results immediately dilute.
It's not a complete disaster, right?
No, it is not a catastrophic failure because romance readers are known to read widely across subgenres, but the alignment is objectively weaker.
Yeah.
A reader might download your cowboy book because the cover looked nice, but their true obsession is dark mafia billionaires. When they get on your list and realize you only write about wholesome ranchers, they will disengage.
Your open rates will drop.
Yes, the filter was too porous.
Okay, scenario 3, the nightmare scenario. The text warns about joining massive, generic, free book mega bundles, where genre basically goes out the window entirely. You put your sweet cowboy romance in a bundle alongside a gritty police procedural, an EMP post-apocalyptic survival thriller, a nonfiction cookbook, and a sci-fi space opera.
It is algorithmic suicide.
Literally suicide. There is zero crossover appeal between a sweet cowboy romance and a post-apocalyptic thriller about surviving a nuclear winter.
None. The people downloading your book from that page are simply hoarding free digital files. They are the digital equivalent of the iPad seekers.
Right.
When you email your list of newly acquired survivalist thriller readers to announce your new book about a rancher falling in love at the county fair, they are going to mark you as spam.
You will have paid money to acquire subscribers who actively damage your business.
Exactly. But the fear, though, is so pervasive. Creators are terrified of this level of specificity because it feels claustrophobic.
It does. If I only write for the Wolf Shifter pack dynamic reader, I am willingly ignoring 99% of the reading population. The natural instinct is to try and be a little bit of everything to appeal to a broader base.
But in a crowded, noisy digital market, trying to be everything to everyone guarantees you will mean nothing to anyone. Specificity is the only mechanism that generates loyalty.
So true.
If you are the only author providing the exact, hyper-specific flavor of wolf shifter drama a reader craves, they won't just read your books, they will evangelize them. They will defend your brand. You have to conquer the micro niche before you can even think about the macro market.
Don't be afraid to drill down into your sub-genre. The practical mandate here is to ruthlessly examine your current free offer. Look at your lead magnet. Does it strictly align with your core product? Is the transition from the freebie to the paid product completely seamless, both in topic and in tone?
And if it isn't, you are catching the wrong fish.
However, embracing this strict alignment inevitably creates a structural, long-term business problem. And to the author's credit, the source material does not shy away from it.
Right, the scaling problem.
Exactly. If strict alignment demands that you keep your target audience intentionally small and hyper-focused, how do you ever grow? Let's say I write that cowboy romance, and I have spent 3 years perfectly aligning my magnets.
Right.
I have captured every cowboy romance reader on the platform. My niche is saturated. How do I build an empire if I am permanently trapped in this tiny, hyper-specific box?
You are never trapped, but you have to be highly strategic about how you expand your borders. You can't just take wild leaps into the unknown.
So what's the strategy?
The author provides a framework for this. Conceptualizing your growth as moving across a family tree or an organizational chart of adjacent niches.
I love this concept. Let's trace the branches of this family tree. If I am the cowboy romance author, and I'm ready to scale my business to a new audience, my instinct might be to pivot to something massively popular. I see that urban fantasy involving vampires is trending and making millions. Should I write an urban fantasy reader magnet to bring those readers into my ecosystem?
That is the exact wild leap that destroys lists.
Why?
Think about the friction. You use a vampire magnet to attract a reader who loves dark, supernatural, high-stakes magical combat. You get them on your list. What is your actual product?
Small-town ranchers dealing with family drama and mending fences.
The cognitive dissonance is massive. They will unsubscribe immediately. You have to move across the family tree systematically, go up or over exactly one subgenre branch.
So what is the immediate adjacent branch for the cowboy?
Cowboy romance lives under the wider, overarching umbrella of small-town romance. That is the parent node on the family tree.
Okay, I see.
So a safe horizontal move across the tree would be to target small-town sports romance, or small-town military romance, or small-town blue-collar romance.
But wait, why are those specific horizontal moves safe? The literal subject matter is completely different. A professional hockey player is not a cowboy.
The window dressing changes, but the emotional architecture remains identical. This goes back to why the reader hated the bear but loved the wolf.
Oh, the emotional itch.
Exactly. A reader who loves small-town cowboy books is ultimately looking for themes of community, slower pacing, traditional values, and tight-knit family dynamics.
Right.
If you shift your focus to a small-town hockey player returning to his rural hometown, you are providing the exact same emotional beats. You are porting over the vibe, just swapping out the boots for ice skates.
Wow.
You are offering a new demographic of readers a deeply familiar psychological experience.
That is fascinating. You're basically smuggling your core product into a new neighborhood by painting the delivery truck a slightly different color.
That's a great way to put it, exactly. But the source material issues a massive warning here.
What's the catch?
When you step out of your immediate, strictly aligned niche, even if it's just one branch over on the family tree, you are introducing risk. The filter is slightly wider. To mitigate that risk, you must rely on your automated onboarding sequence.
The welcome sequence. The series of automated emails a subscriber receives the moment they join your list.
Yes. When you expand to an adjacent niche, your welcome sequence has to act like a polite but extremely firm bouncer at the door of an exclusive club.
A bouncer. I like that.
Its job is expectation management. You have to clearly, explicitly communicate what your main body of work actually is, so that you can gently repel the subscribers who realize they made a wrong turn.
What does that actually look like in practice? If I wrote a free small-town hockey novella to attract new readers, but my backlist is 15 cowboy novels, what do I say in that first email?
You lead with transparency. The email says, "I'm so glad you love this hockey story. Just to be completely upfront with you, my main obsession is writing about cowboys. If you enjoyed the small-town feel of this hockey book, you will absolutely love my Cowboy series because it features the exact same kind of drama, humor, and tight-knit community.
That makes sense. Pitch the vibe.
Exactly. But if you strictly only read sports books and hate ranches, I might not be the right author for you, and you can unsubscribe using the link below with zero hard feelings.
That is so counterintuitive to everything we are taught. You are literally inviting them to leave. You are pointing them to the exit sign.
You want them to leave.
Really?
Yes. If they stay and never open an email, they hurt your deliverability. The bouncer's doing their job.
Oh, right. The algorithm credit score.
Exactly. If the hockey reader reads that email, realizes they hate cowboys, and unsubscribes, your list remains pristine and highly engaged. If they read it and think, well, I do love a good small-town vibe, I'll give the cowboy a shot, you have successfully scaled your audience.
It's brilliant.
You hover in your core niche, step to the immediate adjacent space, hoover up the potential superfans, and use your welcome sequence to violently shake the filter and drop the dead weight.
It is a brilliant self-cleaning system. But this brings us to a paradox in the chapter that completely broke my brain the first time I read it.
I know what you're going to say.
We have spent this entire time talking about the mechanics of tight alignment, staying in your lane and filtering out the wrong people.
Right.
The logical assumption is that if you execute this perfectly, if you build a highly aligned magnet, target the exact right micro niche, and attract a reader who genuinely deeply loves your actual product, that person will be the perfect email subscriber.
It is a totally logical assumption, and it is frequently painfully wrong.
But how is that possible? The text uses a very specific, heartbreaking scenario for a creator.
Yeah, the bonus epilogue scenario.
Right. A reader buys your book. They love it so much, they stay up until 2 a.m. to finish it. They get to the back matter. They click the link for the bonus epilogue. They type in their email address. They eagerly read the bonus content. And then they never, ever open another email from you again.
It happens all the time.
Over the next 6 months, they fall completely out of engagement, and your ESP flags them as a cold subscriber. How does this happen if the alignment was flawless and the product was beloved?
It happens because we conflate two entirely different things. We assume that a good reader or a good customer is synonymous with a good subscriber.
Oh.
But we have to separate the audience's love for your product from the friction of the medium you're using to communicate with them.
The medium being the email inbox itself.
Precisely. Let's look at the modern reality of the email inbox. For a vast portion of the population, the inbox is not a place of joy or discovery.
Not at all.
It is a source of profound, chronic anxiety. It is a dumping ground for utility bills, demands from their boss, dentist appointment reminders, and hundreds of aggressive promotional emails a day.
Yeah, just looking at the red notification badge on my phone is a stressor.
So when they are reading your book on their Kindle or watching your video on YouTube, they are in a leisure state. They're enjoying your art.
Right.
But the moment you drop a newsletter into their inbox, you are dragging your art into their stress zone.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
Some people simply are not newsletter people. They suffer the friction of the inbox just long enough to get that specific piece of bonus content because they genuinely loved your characters.
But the moment they start receiving your regular Tuesday morning newsletter,
the medium itself creates an insurmountable barrier. They ignore your email, not because they suddenly dislike your work, but because they are paralyzed by inbox overwhelm.
They aren't bad customers. They aren't leeches.
No, not at all.
They just require a completely different touch point.
And this is where creators inflict so much unnecessary emotional damage on themselves. You look at your email stats. You see that someone who downloaded your epilogue hasn't opened an email in 6 months, and you take it personally.
You think they must have hated the epilogue. They must hate my writing. I'm a failure.
No. They just don't want to consume information via email. This is why a mature business strategy requires providing alternative habitats for your genuine fans to stay connected.
What does a different habitat look like?
You have to give them low-friction options. In your welcome sequence or on your website, you can say, hey, if you hate getting weekly emails, I have a release day only list where I swear I will only email you twice a year when a new product drops.
That's a great idea.
Or you encourage them to follow you on a retail platform like Amazon, where Amazon will send them a push notification when you publish something new.
Yeah, or you point them to a specific Instagram account or a private Discord server.
Exactly. You have to allow your fans to interact with you in the environment where they feel most comfortable and relaxed.
And crucially, you cannot be afraid to clean your email list.
Oh, absolutely not.
If someone isn't opening your emails for 6 months, you have to manually scrub them off the list. You have to delete them to protect your sender reputation and your deliverability, but you do it knowing that they might still be quietly buying all of your products in the background.
It is incredibly liberating once you truly internalize that. The relationship isn't broken. The communication channel was just a mismatch.
Right.
It frees you from the anxiety of vanity metrics and allows you to focus all of your energy on the people who actively want to engage in the specific medium you are providing.
Which brings all of these concepts together into one foundational, absolute truth about building an audience.
Yes.
If there is only one thing you take away from this entire deep dive, let it be this image: a reader magnet, an email incentive, a free digital cookie. It is not a giant net designed to dredge the ocean floor to see how much biomass you can drag onto your boat.
Because if you operate that way, you are going to pull up garbage, old boots, and toxic algae that will literally suffocate your ecosystem and trigger the algorithms to shut you down.
Your incentive is a highly specialized, tightly aligned, heavily guarded filter.
Yes.
It is an architectural mechanism designed to catch only your specific fish, while intentionally, strategically, and cheerfully letting the rest of the ocean swim away.
In the modern, hypersaturated creator economy, a tiny, hyper-engaged army of superfans is infinitely more valuable and infinitely more profitable than a massive, indifferent crowd looking for a cheap handout.
You want precision. You want to look at your audience and know that every single person there is invested in your specific worldview.
Quality over quantity is often dismissed as a cliche, like an ancient maxim we say to make ourselves feel better about being small. But in the realm of email deliverability, algorithmic trust scores, and audience engagement, it is not a cliche. It is an absolute, unbreakable mathematical law.
It forces you to look in the mirror and ask a really tough question about your own work. If the ultimate goal is to design a filter that repels the masses and only attracts a hyper-specific, deeply engaged superfan, is your product actually unique enough to command that kind of loyalty?
That's the real test.
Or are you just serving up generic, cheap hamburger and hoping the crowd doesn't notice? It is something to think about the next time you sit down to create. You've just learned how to build the perfect, highly aligned trap to catch your ideal fan.
But the journey doesn't end there.
Nope. What if I told you that everything you've ever heard about organic subscribers, the pure, noble fans who find you naturally being inherently superior to bribe subscribers, is a complete and total fabrication?
I can't wait for that one.
We are going to tackle that sacred cow in our next deep dive. What if the golden rule of building your audience that, organic followers are the only ones actually worth having, is actually destroying your growth?
Oh, man. I mean, it is a genuinely terrifying proposition for anyone who has spent years, maybe even decades, carefully cultivating what they think is this pure audience,
Right, because we're basically talking about completely dismantling a foundational pillar of digital marketing strategy here.
Exactly. I mean, the anxiety around list hygiene and subscriber quality is it's at an all-time high right now.
Yeah, it really is. And for years, creators and business owners, you've been told to basically fear the bribed subscriber and worship the organic one.
Yep, like it's an absolute law of physics or something.
But today, we're completely dismantling that myth. So in this deep dive, we are unpacking Chapter 4 of Tammi Labrecque's newsletter Ninja 2, which is titled Organic versus Non-Organic. Who cares?
Such a great title, honestly.
It really is. And you are about to learn why dividing your audience this way is a massive trap, and why understanding the true psychology of a subscriber is going to completely revolutionize how you build your mailing list or your customer base.
Yeah, because it forces a massive paradigm shift.
It does.
Yeah.
So whether you are an entrepreneur, an author, or just insanely curious about digital marketing, this deep dive is going to change how you view audience acquisition forever. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We really need to start by defining the terms here, because these two labels basically dominate the entire industry.
They do, yeah. They're everywhere.
Right. So first we have the organic subscribers, and those are the people who sign up simply because they want to hear more from you, like they stumble on your website and just type their email into a little box.
Unprompted.
Okay.
Purely out of sheer enthusiasm for your work.
Exactly. And then on the other side, we have the non-organic subscribers.
All right, the dark side.
Right, supposedly. And these are the people who are offered an incentive, a cookie, a reader magnet, maybe a discount code, basically a bribe to join the list.
Yeah. And the marketing world is just absolutely saturated with this inherited wisdom that the organic one is inherently better.
But the author uses this really hilarious analogy to kind of tear that down, doesn't she?
She does. It's so good. She brings up the concept of cow tipping.
Cow tipping.
Yeah, because she grew up in rural Maine, right? And out there, the urban legend of cow tipping is just ubiquitous. Like, everyone talks about sneaking into a field at night to push over a sleeping cow.
I mean, I've definitely heard people claim they've done it.
Right. But if you actually apply, basic physics and bovine biology to the scenario, the whole myth just falls apart instantly.
Wait, really? Because they're just too heavy?
Well, yeah. Cows are massive, incredibly heavy, low-to-the-ground animals. And they actually sleep lying down when they need deep REM sleep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and when they do doze standing up, they are highly alert, and they have this structural stance that makes them basically impossible for a human to tip over.
So it's just a physical improbability.
Exactly. It's a total myth.
Right.
But it survives entirely on anecdotal repetition, you
Right.
know? Like, someone heard from a cousin who heard from a friend that they went cow tipping, so it must be true.
Right. It sounds plausible if you don't think about it too hard.
Exactly. And the author points out that this idea that organic is inherently better is basically the digital marketing equivalent of cow tipping.
Wow.
It's an industry urban legend. It is a sacred cow that desperately needs to be tipped over.
I love that. But wait, I have to push back here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because as I was going through the sources, didn't this same author, Tammi, write a whole first book where she actually praised organic subscribers? Like, she called them high quality from the start, right?
Yeah, it's so funny you caught that, because that is one of the most fascinating aspects of this entire chapter.
Right. How do we reconcile that?
She actually admits it. She openly points out her own hilarious admission of falling into this exact trap in her first book.
Oh, wow. So she was caught in the myth, too.
Completely. She gave lip service to the superiority of the organic subscriber, but then, like, simultaneously taught readers how to acquire non-organic subscribers using incentives.
That is some serious cognitive dissonance right there.
It really shows how deeply ingrained this bias is in the business world, you know? If the person writing the textbook on mailing list strategy is unconsciously parroting the dogma, it's no wonder everyone else believes it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So the practical takeaway here is we just have to stop limiting our list building efforts based on an industry myth.
Stop categorizing your audience based on how they entered your ecosystem, period.
Exactly. But if non-organic subscribers aren't inherently worse, why does everyone think they are? I mean, marketers aren't just hallucinating, right?
No, they're not. And what's fascinating here is how marketers and authors constantly misinterpret their own data to confirm their biases.
Okay, explain that. How are they misinterpreting the data?
Well, the text uses this great analogy of the blind man and the elephant.
Oh, I know this one, where one touches the trunk and thinks it's a snake.
Right, and one touches the leg and thinks it's a tree. One touches the tail and thinks it's a rope.
Yeah.
They're all experiencing a tiny part of the reality, but completely missing the big picture. And that is exactly what happens when a creator looks at their dashboard.
So they see, like, poor engagement on their list, and they immediately blame the fact that the subscribers were bribed.
Exactly. They see a plummeting open rate after a lead magnet campaign, and they say, it's because freebie seekers are garbage.
But they're missing the whole elephant.
Yes. In reality, they might be using low-quality ads, or they might be targeting the completely wrong niche.
Oh, the targeting thing. The sources went really deep into this concept of micro-niche alignment.
It's so critical. The author uses this fantastic example from the paranormal romance genre.
Okay, what is it?
She compares bear shifter romances to wolf shifter romances.
Bear shifters versus wolf shifters. Okay.
Right. To an outsider, those sound like the exact same demographic, right? Just people who like reading about humans turning into animals.
Yeah, I would group them together, honestly.
But within that ecosystem, a reader might absolutely devour werewolf romances and completely despise bear shifters.
Oh, wow. So if you write bear shifters and your lead magnet accidentally targets the wolf shifter audience.
Because you used the wrong keywords in your ad copy or a generic image, yes, you will ruin your list metrics.
Because they'll download the free book, realize it's bears, and just never open your emails again.
Exactly. And then the author looks at the data and says, well, non-organic subscribers suck, when in reality, it was a targeting failure.
It's a failure of the marketer, not a moral failing of the subscriber.
Precisely. Or they might be offering a really bad incentive, like the calibration of the cookie itself is flawed.
I see this constantly on social media, people saying, enter your email for a chance to win an iPad.
Oh, it is the worst. It's arguably the most destructive list-building strategy out there.
Because who wants an iPad? Literally everyone.
Right. You aren't attracting people who actually want your specific product. You're just attracting professional sweepstakes entrants.
Right. People who just want a free iPad. And the moment you send them an email about your actual business, they're going to hit the spam button.
Yes. And again, the creator blames the bribe instead of blaming their own overly broad incentive.
So if your metrics look bad, you can't just use the non-organic label as a scapegoat. You have to audit your entire system.
Your targeting, your welcome sequence, your ad quality, all of it.
Okay, that makes total sense. But I want to transition a bit here. Because why are people so quick to blame the incentive, like on a psychological level?
It really comes down to a deep-seated fear of the freebie seeker.
Right. The text talks about this doom spiral that creators fear.
Yeah, the doom spiral. It's this belief that if you offer something for free, your list is just going to fill up with these leeches.
People who won't open emails, won't remember you, and basically just hoard free books or free templates like dragons hoarding gold.
Yeah. Exactly. And the fear is that they will never spend a single dime, and ultimately they'll just cost you money in email service provider fees.
Honestly, that sounds like a totally valid fear. I mean, if I have to pay MailChimp or ConvertKit $150 a month for deadweight subscribers, I'm losing real money. And if I give away a cookie, aren't I just attracting people who only want cookies?
Well, the author dismantles this completely by shifting the moral weight of the transaction.
Okay, how so?
Because wanting something for free is not a moral failing.
Huh.
She brings up this great personal anecdote. She says she happily buys $15 Nora Roberts pre-orders. Like, she doesn't wait for a sale, she just buys them.
Right, she's a high-value paying customer.
But she will also absolutely grab a free book if it's offered to her by an unknown author.
Oh, interesting. So she's both.
Exactly. Downloading a freebie doesn't mean someone is financially bankrupt or that they have this psychological aversion to paying for things. It just means they like free things.
Because the risk is zero. It's a low-friction way to sample something new.
Yes, a parasitic freebie seeker and a whale customer are very often the exact same human being, just at different stages of trust with different brands.
That is such a good point. We want to put people into these neat little boxes, but human behavior is way more fluid than that.
And we also have to look at the exact terms of the transaction, right? Like, what did you actually offer them on the landing page?
Right, the psychological contract.
The agreement is, you give me your email, I give you a cookie.
That's it. It's a straight barter.
Yes. It is emphatically not, I give you a cookie, and you become a lifelong superfan who reads every newsletter and buys every product I ever make.
If you put those terms on a sign-up form, literally nobody would ever give you their email.
Nobody. Readers owe you nothing more than the email address. They pay the agreed-upon price.
So you just have to stop getting angry at people for taking the free thing you offered.
Exactly. You have to shift your focus away from the people who leave and pour all of your energy into the ones who stay.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because if bribed subscribers can actually be great, what happens to the precious organic subscribers? Like, are they really as loyal as we think they are?
Well, the data provides a really cold answer to that, which is absolutely not.
Not at all.
The assumption that organic subscribers will stick around forever just because they liked your product enough to sign up unprompted is completely false.
But the logic feels so sound, you know? Like if I finish a book, go to the author's website, and type my email into a box without being offered a single bonus, I must be a super fan.
It feels right, but it completely ignores the psychological and technical hurdles of the modern inbox.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, think about your own inbox. Even if someone loved your book or your product in that one moment, they might not voluntarily subject themselves to yet another newsletter without a bribe.
Oh, because of inbox overwhelm.
Exactly. We all suffer from it. We are bombarded with promotional emails, receipts, personal stuff. It's exhausting.
Yeah, the cognitive load is just massive.
Right. And people accumulate these towering to-be-read piles or TBR piles, and they just lose interest. Their initial enthusiasm just battles against entropy and fatigue.
That makes total sense. And even if they do want to read your stuff, they have to fight the algorithms, right?
Oh, the algorithms are the real enemy here. Technical interferences like Gmail's promotions tab.
Right. I think a lot of creators view the promotions tab as this, like, malicious force. How does it actually interact with organic versus not organic?
Well, the algorithm doesn't have a conscience, right? It doesn't look at an email and say, oh, this person signed up organically, let's put this in the primary tab.
It's totally blind to the origin story.
Yes. It just looks at, domain reputation, engagement metrics, the HTML to text ratio. And if your overall list hygiene is bad, Gmail will just silently route your emails to the promotions tab for everyone.
Like for everyone. So even the hyper-loyal organic subscriber might just never see it.
Exactly. It hides your emails from organic and non-organic subscribers equally. Out of sight is out of mind.
Wow. And this actually brings up a really huge danger for creators.
What's that?
Well, if you assume your organic subscribers are permanently loyal, you might actually take them for granted.
Oh, yes. The neglect factor.
Right. Like if I know someone signed up from a Facebook ad, I know they're a cold lead, so I'll put them through this rigorous, high-effort song and dance welcome sequence to win them over.
You deploy all your best assets.
Exactly. But if an organic sign-up comes in, I might just dump them on the main list without any onboarding, because I assume they already love me.
And because you skip that psychological nurturing, your organic subscribers will actually lose interest faster than the non-organic ones.
It is such a profound irony. By assuming they don't need care, you end up starving your best leads.
And there's one more psychological phenomenon here that we have to talk about. The author calls it definition creep.
Definition creep, yeah. I found this part so funny.
It's hilarious because it forces creators to confront how intellectually honest they're actually being. Because possessing an organic list has become this massive status symbol, right?
It's an ego trip. It proves you're good enough without using marketing tactics.
Exactly. So authors try to cheat the definition to keep that status, even when they're actually using incentives.
How do they cheat it?
Well, an author will put a bonus epilogue at the very back of a published book.
Okay, so the reader finishes the book, wants closure, and sees a link.
Right. The link says, enter your email to get this exclusive epilogue for free. So the reader does it. And then the author goes to a conference and brags, my list is 100% organic. I don't use bribes.
But that is literally a bribe.
It is the textbook definition of a cookie.
But I can see the mental gymnastics they're doing. They're thinking, well, this person bought my book and read 300 pages, so they prove they were a fan before they clicked the link.
Yes, they assume that because the reader traversed through a paid product first, they are inherently a pure subscriber.
But the text firmly shuts this down.
Hard. The author says, no, that is a bribe. And the critical question is, does reading the book and taking the epilogue actually guarantee they are a good subscriber?
My bias wants to say yes.
But the answer is no. You have absolutely no idea if a subscriber is good until you watch what they do over time.
Because they might just be a completionist who wanted the ending, but they hate newsletters and will never open another email from you again.
Exactly. The transaction ended the moment they got the epilogue.
Wow. So the practical takeaway is you have to treat every subscriber, organic or not, as someone whose attention you have to actively earn and maintain week after week.
Yes. And that brings us to the core synthesis of this entire chapter.
Yeah, let's tie this all together. What's the real soul of this chapter?
The soul of it is that the entry point matters far, far less than the ecosystem you bring them into.
The origin story is basically irrelevant.
Completely. Because whether a subscriber walked through the front door naturally, or whether you handed them a flyer with a free cookie, the longitudinal data shows one undeniable phenomenon: normalization.
Normalization.
Yeah.
So the behavior of both groups basically evens out?
Yes. After 4 to 6 months of a good welcome sequence and consistent emails, their behavior normalizes entirely.
So if you looked at the data blindly, you wouldn't be able to tell the organic from the bribed subscriber.
You wouldn't. The ratios of retention, churn, and conversion are roughly identical.
So what does this all mean?
It means you need to stop starving your own growth out of a misplaced sense of purity.
If you have a tiny list of organic subscribers, your first step to leveling up is to take your organic versus non-organic bias and just chuck it in the bin.
Chuck it straight into the incinerator.
Exactly. It is not a dirty, manipulative tactic to incentivize human behavior. You are just lowering the barrier to entry so people can discover your value.
Yep, it's the genesis of a relationship, not a trick.
Which leaves us with a really provocative strategic question to mull over. Because now that we know bribery isn't a dirty word, and we've agreed to start handing out cookies to everyone who passes by.
Which you absolutely should do.
Right. But it begs a massive question. What exactly makes a good cookie?
Yes. Because offering the wrong kind of cookie like that iPad to the wrong kind of reader might be the exact reason your list isn't converting.
Exactly. So next time, we'll be exploring the two distinct types of reader magnets.
The existing reader cookie versus the convertible cookie.
Yes, and we're going to dive into why deploying the wrong one is actually worse than deploying no incentive at all. You definitely won't want to miss that deep dive.
It's going to be a good one.
But until then, just remember, the landscape of audience building is complex. And the only thing that separates a deadweight subscriber from a lifelong superfan isn't how they arrived at your door. It's exactly what you do with them after they walk through it.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.